Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Forward with Forli Friday podcast. I hope everybody has had a good week and you are having a fantastic Friday. Forli and I have had a good week. It's been very productive. It's a 4-day week, of course, and so it always feels a bit more rushed and hectic than normal, but we're here on the Forward with Forli Friday podcast, and it's a good day. So one of my subscribers posted a request to another video that I did asking if I could do a Forward with Forli video on going through a Transportation Security Administration screening checkpoint at an airport. And that is a great topic for a video because people have questions about that. And it is a little bit unnerving if you've never done it before. It's not hard, it's just a little bit, there's a little bit to it. Unfortunately, TSA is a little bit weird about people filming a secure checkpoint, and all of your items have to be scanned through the x-ray machine. And thirdly, I'm busy enough with my dog trying to get us both through the checkpoint, so it's kind of not feasible to do a video. But instead, I am going to make traveling through the TSA checkpoint the topic of today's podcast. So it's a relatively straightforward procedure with some moving parts. Now, if you have a guide dog, I am going to say that you follow your school's established protocol for working through a TSA checkpoint, and any of the information that I'm giving in this podcast should not supersede any recommendations, guidance, training, etc. that you receive from a fully qualified guide dog mobility instructor from a guide dog school. So essentially, this is just some suggestions and a guide. But I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that I am not a trainer, just a seasoned traveler with some good input. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about the TSA. So like I said, it's a relatively straightforward process. Here are some things you need to know. First of all, you, your dog, and the equipment that you both use, harness, leash, collar, etc., anything that have to do with the dog and your mobility should never be separated. And the TSA knows this, and they're not allowed to take anything. It's a very firm rule. Not all of them, not all the agents, I should say, remember this rule, but it is most certainly an established rule that they must follow. They have to comply with this order. So at no point, at no checkpoint, current as of making of this podcast, will you have to remove any equipment or be separated from your dog at any point during the screening process. The other thing that you'll want to know or to be prepared for is be assertive. Know this rule that I just talked about. Know that you can't be separated from your dog or its equipment. And be prepared to tell them that, because if the person's new or if they're in training or maybe they didn't get that piece of the training, sometimes TSA training can be a little bit inconsistent when it comes to special circumstances like working with a guide dog through the checkpoint. Make sure that you know this information ahead of time, maybe even rehearse a statement if you're really feeling nervous, so that you can tell them exactly how the procedure is going to go. And I'm going to go over how I do security checkpoints with my dog and sort of what's recommended later in the podcast. So make sure and know your rights as far as that's concerned, and be calm, cool, and collected, as well as assertive. Now, there's a difference between being assertive and rude. You don't need to yell at these people. You don't need to, be irate or, overly demanding. It's possible they're going to get it wrong. They're going to tell you to do something that's not accurate. I was traveling recently, and a security agent tried to take my dog from me, or asked to take the dog, and I said, I'm sorry. This is what I said. I'll say it and kind of the tone and voice that I used to kind of give you an idea. So I just said, hey, I'm really sorry, I can't let you do that. The law and the rule states that my guide dog, its equipment, and myself cannot be separated at any time during this process. And so what I'm going to do instead is ask my dog to sit. I'll walk through the checkpoint. I'll bring the dog through, and you can pat the dog down. And the person was like, whoa, okay, you know what you're talking about. All right, sounds great. And I find that if you just have a confident, not cocky, just confident, assertive attitude, and you're calm about it, and you're professional, and you just explain how it needs to work, most of the time it's going to be okay. They're gonna follow that because it's pretty reasonable, and maybe they remember it, back when they went through training. Oh yeah, I remember that one little training we had on how to work with service dogs. I might jar some of their memory, or maybe a supervisor might be nodding in the background, going, "Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. That's right. This person knows what they're doing." So just be prepared to say that if you have to, and go from there. Now there is also a passenger service specialist, I believe they're called. This program, I believe, was piloted in Portland, Oregon, at the Portland International Airport, or PDX. That's where I'm most familiar with this service. But basically, if you call their number ahead of time and you give them your flight info and when you're going to be arriving, they will assign somebody to assist you through the checkpoint. And as far as I can tell, this program is starting to expand to other airports in various shapes and forms. They're very good in Portland. I've used this service several times. And basically what they do is they help walk you through the entire screening procedure, which I'm going to talk about now. So after you check in, you have your boarding pass and your ID. You'll get in line, and then you'll get up to the first TSA agent, whose job it is to verify your identity and scan your boarding pass. So they will do that. And then if you don't have assistance, like I travel quite a bit, and I'm pretty comfortable, so oftentimes I don't even get airport assistance. I can't tell you how many awesome conversations I've had with just random travelers going to the same gate I am. So yeah, it's a little bit daring, I guess, a little gutsy, but it's kind of my style. Unless I'm in a huge airport or somewhere I just really don't know or just don't feel like it, I try to just get myself there with the people that are around me, because chances are they're going to be just as helpful as waiting 45 minutes for somebody who may or may not be real interested in assisting me, even though that might be their job. So get up to the screening checkpoint, and we'll then ask them for assistance going through the checkpoint. Now, there are several screening tools that the TSA uses. The one you always want to use with your guide dog, regardless, is the metal detector. So you can just ask them if you know your home airport and you know how to get to the checkpoint. You can walk up there to the person scanning your boarding pass and say, hey, can I get some assistance going through the metal detector? Sure, no problem. And this is a really good strategy to use. Even, like I said, I travel solo quite a bit and don't get a ton of assistance. This is one area where I always get assistance, because what it allows you to do is to work with a TSA agent who you can kind of start to build a rapport with in a short amount of time, and explain to them how the process works. You can show them your dog, and obviously they're going to see that you're visually impaired, and that's one more person that will be is interested in helping you at that point. And if you explain it to the person sort of while you're waiting in line, it's a somewhat calm environment, right? You're not it's a little bit different than trying to explain it to somebody while you're talking across this checkpoint. And they may or may not be fully paying attention, because they might be, looking at, a bunch of jammed up bags in the X-ray machine next to them, or whatever. So it's good to get assistance, and you can kind of explain how the procedure works. So after you go through, you put your things in the on the X-ray belt, and they'll tell you how to do that. Which take your shoes off, and backpack, jacket, belt, keys, phone, wallet, or not wallet, keys and phone for sure, that sort of thing. And then you will be led over to the metal detector. And there's a couple ways you can go through it. The way that I use, and that I find seems to be the most standard, is to have your dog either sit or stand in sort of a wait position. Sitting is better because it gives the dog a little bit more of the message of like, hey, you need to be, wait here for a sec. Something's going to happen, but you need to just stay still while I move around you. So either sitting or standing at the edge of the metal detector, and then make a long leash because you'll need to walk through the metal detector, which it's not a very far distance, but it is about the length of a long leash, so 5 or 6 feet, and walk through. Pause for a couple of seconds just to make sure that the TSA has been able to scan you, and they might even say, okay, call the dog through, and then you would call your dog through. Get your dog under control. They might be a little bit excited. There's other people around. My dogs, after a while, this is maybe a mark of how much I've traveled over the years. All 3 of my dogs will kind of, in anticipation, just, kind of trot their way right through, tail wagging. They're just super stoked because they know what's going to happen on the other side. They're going to get pat down, and a pat down to a dog is a great thing. It's not great for us, but the dogs, as far as they're concerned, someone's petting them, and they're happy with that. So all of my dogs have really liked getting a TSA pat down. Probably the only individuals who like a TSA pat down. So get your dog under control, make a short leash, have them sit, whatever you need to do, and then give them permission, give the TSA permission, okay, you can pat my dog down. And they will just basically pet your dog. They're going to feel your dog, they're going to feel underneath the harness. Again, they can't unbuckle it, they can't move it, they can't unclip anything. They can, pick up the handle, they can look underneath it. I even had one time lift my dog's tail. Yes, that's right. They lifted my dog's tail and looked under there. Which, I guess, someone could probably figure out a way to hide something. I don't know. That's really disturbing. Not going to talk anymore about that, but that was probably the weirdest thing they did when inspecting my dog. And then sort of optional step is they will take you over to like a computer station and do a hand swab. So they'll just take like a paper square and just run it across your hands, and they'll scan it. And I think what they're scanning for is like trace amounts of chemicals or explosives or anything like that. So I'm sure it's part of their security protocol. They don't do anything with the dog. They don't swab the dog's feet or fur or nose or any of that sort of thing, just your hands. And then from that point, you just collect your things off the x-ray machine and then head on your way. Now, this is where it is helpful to have TSA assistance again, because sometimes when your things are going through, something might have to be rescanned again. If you use like a safety razor or something, even if you don't have a blade in it, it's, safety razors, they're usually made out of a metal, and they, sometimes have to be rescanned or something. So that's just one thing that stands out that they'll do. So they'll pull your bag out of sequence, and so like your shoes might come through, and then someone else's bag, and then another tray, and then maybe your bag comes back through again or something. So it's really helpful to have the TSA agent who helped you before you went through the metal detector help you again, so that you can get all your stuff and that you're, putting your own things on and you're not grabbing someone else's shoes or whatever. That would be awkward. And then from that point, you're good. I know it's kind of sounded like a lot, but it goes pretty fast. TSA is pretty good at moving people along, and for the most part, they're pretty friendly. So again, you really just want to be assertive. You always want to go through the metal detector, and know that you cannot be separated from your dog at any point. Now, if you want to practice, if you want your dog to be a little bit more confident with this, like you want to teach them to sit at the metal detector, because that's a good thing to do, and you can practice this at home. Because sometimes what happens is the dog sees you go through, and they immediately want to follow because they're sort of in heel mode. You've got the leash in your hand. They're anticipating, when they see that leash, they know that when the leash is up, they're leading you. Or excuse me, you're leading them. Jeez, get this right here. You are leading them. So they might kind of anticipate that and just walk through, because they don't understand why they have to stop. They don't know it's a metal detector. They just see it as another doorway. So at home, what you can do is just find a door, any door that you want, and open it and just have your dog sit or stand on one side, make a long leash, you walk through, and then when you're ready, you call the dog. And you want to use your school's obedience procedures for this. If you have a guide dog, you want to if you use like the command wait or stay or rest or any of those, whatever protocol you have for obedience, having your dog stay in one spot while you do something temporarily, you want to use. And so you can practice this at home and do it several times if you're new or if you're feeling at all nervous about this or you really want your dog to be solid. It definitely helps, because if your dog comes through first, or if your dog comes through before you've walked through the metal detector, the TSA will ask you both to come back through again. So you'll have to redo the whole thing. So you have to heel the dog back out, make him sit, you walk through, then the dog walks through. So if you can, practice at home a few times. And then while you're doing it at the airport, you can remind your dog, hey, Juno, stay. Juno, sit. Juno, stay. And you put your hand out, or, again, or whatever command. Maybe you're using rest. Juno, rest. If you find it easier to have your dog laying down, if it's more constructive for your dog to have them laying down, that's fine. Have them stand up, that's fine. Whatever's best for you and your dog. Now, there is a less common way to go through the metal detector, and that is to have your dog go through first. You can do this. I think it's a little bit harder because you're going to have to stand on one side of the detector with a long leash. The dog's going to go through first. They're going to go to the end of that leash, and then they're probably going to be excited because there's the TSA folks standing there, and you're not there, so they might be kind of looking back at you, or they might even walk back through like, hey, how come you're not coming? So, and then, the dog's pulling on you. So this is a way to do it, and it certainly does work for some folks. But I think it's easier if you go through first and then bring the dog through, so that there's just less dog behavior management going on. And, it can be a little chaotic going through security. There's a lot of people. It's active. Of course, if it's like 5:30 in the morning, you might have not had your cup of coffee yet. I definitely understand that. So you want to make this as easy as possible on yourself going through security. So again, it's relatively straightforward. Most of the time, TSA is pretty good about knowing what to do, especially if you tell them what to do. They usually won't question it. I have been traveling independently through airports for at least 10 years, and in that time, they have gotten a lot better. And so I think, for the most part, you're going to be fine. It's going to be an okay experience. Now, if something does go wrong, if the TSA person is just not listening to you, or you feel like they didn't, they're not letting you go through the way you want to go through with your dog, or they're insisting that they take your dog, just ask us to speak to a supervisor. Be like, okay, appreciate what you're saying. Can you get me a supervisor? And just, again, you're wanting to treat this as a professional, business transaction. And you're just going to negotiate, and you're going to explain to the supervisor, this is the rules, this is how it works. I need to go through with my dog like this. I can't be separated. But what I can do, and that's another thing, is if you can provide a solution to their problem. If you can say, I can't give you my dog. I cannot be separated from my dog or its equipment. But what I can do is have my dog sit just like this, and then I will walk through holding my dog's leash so that it doesn't get away, and then the dog will walk through, and you guys can pat her down and do whatever you need to do. That will help defuse the situation, because you're being resistant to their instructions, but you're also offering a solution. So again, just kind of borrowing from the basics of any negotiation or discussion you would be having. But know your rights, and if it gets out of hand, you definitely want to go as far up the chain of command as you need to go. You want to make sure that you're getting taken care of, so that you and your dog are treated fairly and treated properly, and are going through the security checkpoint as you're supposed to. If you have further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, go ahead and crush the like button. I definitely appreciate that. Feel free to share and subscribe. And thank you for listening today. Have a wonderful day.